Truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
You may have a seat. All right, Ms. Cochran.
Sir, can you please state your name and spell it for the record?
My name is Ed Bolt, E-D-B-O-L-T.
And do you know the defendant, Natalie Cochran?
Yes, I do.
How do you know her?
She was married to my stepson, Michael. She's my daughter-in-law.
And before Michael passed away, what was your relationship like with the defendant?
We love Natalie. We just thought of her as a daughter.
And just yes or no, do you believe that this jury should grant her mercy in this matter?
No.
And why is that?
Well, I have a statement.
Are those notes that you have done yourself?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you go ahead.
That'll maybe answer some of that question if you don't mind.
Yes, sir.
Today I stand before everyone, a man filled with grief, pain, bitterness, and anxiety. My name is Ed Bolt. I am Michael Cochran's stepfather. The grief that I feel is when I look out our window at the deer stand that Michael had put up at our house after one day of helping me do a lot of demolition work. He put the deer stand up and then he installed a trail camera so he could do some bow hunting. He was really excited. How are we to know that Michael would never set foot in it again? I often go there now. I have put in a memorial bench there and keep that site clear of brush so we can just sit under that big oak tree and reflect on what could have been. The pain of no more birthday wishes, Christmas holidays, listening to his plans for the future, all taken away. Michael was always up for the challenges, always wanting to accomplish so much, whether it was starting his own businesses, ambitions to become a pilot, entering tough man contests, or just doing DIY projects around his home. February 11th, 2025 will be 6 years since Michael's murder. A cold-blooded, calculated, unremorseful murder. Michael's murder has been referred to as a diabolical act of evil. I miss him. Hey buddy, what's going on? What are you up to? Seems like a small thing, but it's the small things that I cherish most. I think of Michael every day. Where there is life, there is hope. Michael was full of life. When you hear the saying, live your life to the fullest, that image of Michael would be beside of it. Michael was a husband, a father, a son-in-law, a coach, a mentor, a hunter, a fisherman, and a lover of life. He had a tireless work ethic, always willing to help at any time, but most importantly, Michael had integrity. I've used these words, had and was, several times in describing Michael.
Your Honor, I hate to interrupt. May I have, again, continuous objection to this line of statements? Question and answer.
Continue, please, Mr. Bolt.
Thank you. Why? It's because Michael is no longer with us. Michael died a horrible death, tormented and tortured and deceived by his wife. Where there is life, there is hope. Michael was full of life, but wasn't given any hope. This became very clear in Michael's hospital room. There was full of a lot of people. The nursing staff was going to remove the ventilator tube from Michael. Prior to this, the preacher says, "It won't be long now." What did he mean? Where was his hope? We had hope. The nursing staff went to work. All tubes removed. Michael was breathing on his own. Praise God, praise God. You should have seen the look on his wife's face, not of joy, but of disbelief. It was very painful for his mother, who had become overwhelmed with emotion. She was told to leave the room by this preacher because he said she was being disruptive. This is her son. Evil has many faces, shapes, and images. Evil must be held accountable. Natalie Cochran must be held accountable. Life in prison for a premeditated murder may seem fair, but what I think is just would be to take a rope over here to the courthouse, throw it over the branch of that big oak tree.
Mr. Bolt, I think we should put this up there.
All right.
Yes, I agree.
So let's just send her to jail. Remove her from society. Let the state take care of her. From jail, she will not be able to harm anyone ever again. Should I continue to be bitter and let it consume me? Will a life sentence in prison be enough? This is where the anxiety rises up in me. This diabolical plan has now been brought to light. There is no amount of justice that will bring Michael back. Yes, I have written his victim's impact statement, but I'm not the victim. Michael is. Can you believe that this is the second impact statement that I've had to write about the evil, the lies and deception caused by this worker of manipulation? Natalie Cochran is the face of evil. It appears all to be good on the outside, but what lies on the inside is pure evil. She is in federal prison now doing time where she deceived and lied to Donna and I about her financial scheme, stole money from us and other victims in this community.
I object to any more litigation of money and laundering and financial schemes.
Overruled. Continue, Mr. Bolt.
Natalie Cochran has never, ever shown any remorse, never asked him for any forgiveness, or even said she is sorry. Evil is around us every day. We must stay aware. Was Michael aware of the evil all around him? Evil raised her ugly head and took Michael's life. This was an evil act which took place, and not the will of God. God never wills evil. Your Honor, don't let another person get hurt. Don't let another family go through this. Don't give Natalie Cochran any satisfaction. Nothing short of life in prison with no mercy. This would be justice for Michael. And in closing, I'd like to dedicate this statement to Michael. I would like to thank the prosecutor and his team, the investigators for exposing this evil, and to Your Honor for remaining on this case. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bolt. I have no further questions.
Cross-examination.
When did you become Michael's stepfather?
1990, Donna and I were married in 1990, August the 20th of
Okay.
1990. Michael was about 8 years old. Yeah.
Okay. Is it true, sir, that throughout your marriage to Ms. Bolt, Michael did not have any contact with you for about 6 or 7 years in 2000s. Is that true or not?
About,
Yes or no?
no,
No?
I wouldn't say that's a correct statement.
Well, he always lived with you, both of you?
Yes, until he started college.
Okay. Is it true that for the last 10 years of his life, he saw you maybe, you and your wife, he saw you only during the holidays?
Well, we saw each other during the holidays for sure, and I'm sure there was times in between.
Well, why wasn't he with you 24/7 other than being in college when he was already working?
Well, Michael grew up. That's what you do. You nurture a
Michael
child
grew
along,
up.
you get them out on their feet and hope that you've done the right thing and made a path for them.
Did he show up for Christmas of 2018?
2018, no,
No.
no.
Was he there for what else? Thanksgiving 2018?
We usually had Thanksgiving at Michael and Natalie's house.
Yeah.
So he was probably there if we had Thanksgiving there.
Sir, would it be fair to say that all that vengeance is mine attitude is based upon your very limited relationship with Michael because he did not really care to be in your house?
I would say that's an inaccurate
No?
statement.
Okay, that's all I have.
Ms. Aker?
Very briefly, Your Honor. Mr. Bolt, who was the reason that Michael didn't have such close contact with you towards the end of his life?
Well, Donna and Natalie would always text, I mean, they arranged everything. And what Donna would tell me, that Natalie would say, well, Michael's not feeling well, he's not doing very good, but then we would just leave it at that.
So the source was the defendant.
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
No further questions.
So now we are learning that you didn't have such a great relationship, but it's of course Natalie Cochran's fault, right?
I would say that's a true statement, yes.
Right. And yet you're coming here asking for justice, as you call it, against this evil, acting like you've had this wonderful relationship with the man who was doing all these wonderful things around your house. And I'm sorry, sir, but you didn't, did you?
Well, I could point to these shoes that I'm wearing here now. Michael bought me
I don't
these
care about
shoes.
your shoes, sir.
Okay.
Tell me whether
I think
you
we had a very good relationship, being that I wasn't like his father. I was a stepfather.
And yet you're asking this jury to give her no mercy.
Yes.
Even though you claim to be, well, I take it, very religious person.
Well, I'm not so much a
No?
religious person. I wouldn't put that handle on
And
myself.
you don't believe in power of forgiveness and second chances, do you?
Sure.
Sure. All right, that's all.
Anything, Ms. Aker?
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bolt. You may step down. You are excused. Call your next witness, please.
Your Honor, the state calls Donna Bolt to the stand. And we do have a couple of demonstrative exhibits for this witness.
Okay. If you'll raise your right hand, please, ma'am. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, Your Honor, I do.
You may have a seat right there.
I object to this, Your Honor. This is to inflame the jury.
Your Honor, these are pictures of Michael Cochran while he was alive. If anything was inflammatory, it was the photos of his autopsy shown during the trial.
Has not been introduced in the evidence. We have absolutely no reason to bring these exhibits to court. I move to remove them.
These are demonstrative exhibits, Your Honor. They don't need to be moved into evidence.
No, they are only here to inflame the jury. Nothing.
I don't think I can permit these to be displayed. I'm fearful that the prejudicial value would outweigh any probative intent. And they haven't been admitted, and I think that they need to be taken down.
Yes, Your Honor.
Of course, the jury can unsee what the jury saw, Your Honor, but I ask at least for an instruction to disregard these.
All right, members of the jury, I've disallowed these photographs, blown-up pictures to be considered, so you should disregard them, please. You may proceed now, Ms. Akers.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ma'am, can you please state and spell your name for the record?
Yes, my name is Donna Bolt, D-O-N-N-A-B-O-L-T. I'm Michael Cochran's mother.
And in saying that, how do you know the defendant, Natalie Cochran?
Natalie Cochran was my daughter-in-law, and we loved her very much. She was married to Michael for almost 19 years.
Could you briefly just explain for the jury what sort of relationship you had with the defendant before Michael passed away?
When they got married, well, she knows this. Michael went off to WVU to go to college in 1999. She was supposed to went to Concord, but she changed her major and went to WVU. Michael Brandon and I went up to Morgantown several times to find him a place to live. I didn't want him to live on campus. So we found a mobile home for him to live in it's like an elderly care mobile home park. And Michael had a 1988 Jeep that he was driving back and forth. And so when he went to school up there, he was going up there to play baseball. But what had happened was that he changed his major a few times, and I guess finally at the end he decided he wanted to be an information technology major, and that was running, cable wire, computer wiring, and that he went to school for 4 years up there. Natalie, she followed him up there. She was supposed to have been staying in the dorm, but next thing I knew, they were kind of cohabitating in the mobile home, and that wasn't supposed to happen. That was not the plan. So what had happened every time we went up to go see Michael, he would say, "Mom," he said, "you can't come up this weekend." He said, "Natalie's family's up here. They're going to ball games." So we didn't get to come up. And a lot of times when we did get to come up, Natalie would head back home to Daniels to her family's home. So, we bought this trailer for Michael to go, to live in while he was in school. And, let's see, in the fall of 1999, we paid for Michael's first year of school, fall and spring. And in November of 1999...
I'm sorry, but the witness is rambling right now. There is no rhyme or reason to this story, and all of this history of the familiar relationship is irrelevant.
Well, I think that she is setting forth a timeline, and I'll permit it for the purpose of this hearing. You can continue.
Thank you,
Ms.
sir.
Bolt.
In November of 1999, I received a phone call from Natalie. She was at the mobile home in Morgantown. And she said, "Guess what?" I said, "What?" She said, "Well, Michael and I got engaged." I said, "What?" She said, "Yeah." She said, "Are you mad?" I said, "No, let me speak to Michael." And Michael got on the phone, and I said, "Michael Brandon, what in the world are you doing? You're not even 19 years old yet." So that right there kind of caused friction between Natalie and me. It wasn't I didn't like her. They were too young, and I wanted them to wait.
Later in life, did you have a more positive relationship with the defendant?
We did, but I'd like to explain a little bit about, when they got married. They got married in May of 2020. Now, what had happened before that May of 2020, Natalie Cochran
No,
came.
first of all, it is non-responsive answer. Second of all, I think we've laid enough background here. This is a sentencing phase. This is not a history of the Cochran family, Your Honor. I'm sorry, but I object to this.
We can go ahead and move on, Your Honor.
All right, please move on.
I do have a statement that I would like to read.
We'll get there, okay?
Okay.
Do you believe that this defendant deserves mercy in this matter?
I do not,
Can you tell the jury why you believe she doesn't deserve mercy?
because she didn't give Michael any mercy. She let him lay on the floor for hours and hours at the home. She let him lay on the couch, and she never got him any help. When he did go to Raleigh General Hospital, they put him on the ventilator and stuck IVs in his
Now
arms.
I'm going to object. We're trying the case, and this witness has no personal knowledge of this.
No, I'll permit it. Overruled. Go ahead.
And then from Raleigh General, she texts me at 10:30 that night, sends me pictures of Michael Brandon. Can I hold him up?
No, ma'am, just hold on.
Okay.
Was that the first time that you found out that Michael was sick?
Yes, 10:30 that night. It was on a Wednesday night, February 6th. She said, this is how I found him. Found him in the floor in the kitchen of their home. And then she sent me another picture, and he was on the ventilator at Raleigh General Hospital. And he had tubes all in him, and like I said, on the ventilator. She sent me another picture as the Jane Care ambulance is transporting him from one bed to their stretcher to take him on to CAMC. And then later on that night, she sent me another picture of Michael Brandon in the ICU at CAMC on the ventilator. Now, I want you to understand, Natalie Cochran, she texted me. She said, they won't let you come down. She said, they won't let you in at CAMC. She said, only me. She said, but I'll keep you updated. She would, throughout the night, I would text her. Couldn't go to sleep. I would text her, what's his vital signs? What's his blood work? She finally, the next morning, I was able to get up there. But on my way up there, she stopped me and texted me and told me, she said she needed a phone charger for her phone. And then she told me, she sent me to the wrong hospital. She sent me to, there's 2 CAMC. She sent me to the other one. And then finally, I was able to get there on time. When I walked in, Michael Brandon was on the ventilator, laying in his hospital bed. Natalie Cochran was there. I was with her all day long that day. And that evening, that afternoon, she sat over in the corner on her laptop and on her cell phone while I was at Michael's bed, at the head of his bed. She sent me government contracts to my cell phone. And then, she even made a comment that day. She said, I gave him a bath last night, and I pinched his balls as hard as I could, and he didn't even respond. And then I heard her say one more thing for that day. She said, I let him lay on the couch for 7 hours. And I screamed at her. I said, 7 hours? What do you mean you let him lay on the couch for 7 hours?
So what about the loss of your son caused by this defendant leads you to believe that she does not deserve mercy?
Well, she's going to say that we never had a relationship with Michael Brandon. But she's wrong. She's a liar. We'd all the time go down there. Michael Brandon would come up to the house, and we would do things together, even before he even got with her. Michael Brandon and I had a really good relationship. We had a close bond. When he married her, she started pulling him away. She wouldn't let us come around or anything. And then she would, like I said, you've heard family vacations with her side of the family. She wouldn't, she never involved us. She never wanted Michael or her to be around anybody on our side of the family.
Is there anything else that you think this jury needs to hear before they make their decision?
Yes, I do. On Saturday, he went to the hospital on February the 6th, which was a Wednesday. Okay, on Saturday, February the 9th, she had everybody around the room, and she said that, they're going to pull the ET tube or the ventilation tube. And they pulled the tube. She thought he was going to die right away. He did not die. He was breathing on his own. Later on that evening, it was myself, my husband Eddie, and Michael's dad, Mike. And Natalie was there by Michael's bed. And I was at Michael's head. And the little young male nurse came in, and he started doing it's what's called a Glasgow coma scale to see if Michael will react. And see, I'm a retired nurse, so I know this. He would take a lab tube, and he pushed on Michael's finger.
I object to all that medical testing. I really do. This is nothing, has nothing to do with the sentencing, nothing to do with her feelings. This is the description to inflame the jury.
I'm going to permit it. This is not technical medical testimony. It's what this witness observed. You can continue, Ms. Bolt.
Thank you, sir. So the young male nurse, like I said, he was pushing on Michael's fingernail, and then he pushed on Michael's toenail, and Michael jerked his arm and his leg back. Then he went around to Michael's other side where I was standing, and he rubbed his finger, his fist into Michael's chest like a sternal rub. And Michael Brandon raised up out of the bed, and he opened up his eyes. Now, if you look over at Natalie Cochran, instead of being so happy, she looked horrified. Her mouth dropped over.
Any of this, the witness has no personal knowledge of any of this.
I absolutely do.
She was present, and these are her observations, and I think it's pertinent. The court will overrule the objection, and I'll give the defense a running objection and preserve all exceptions. You may continue, Ms. Bolt.
I was there. I saw it. And what Natalie did after that, we were so happy. We were just thanking God, because I kept telling Michael, I know you're in there. I know you're in there. And then he opened up his eyes. And what the male nurse did next is he walked around the bed and went over to Natalie, and he whispered in her ear, I have to chart this. And Natalie shook her head yes. Later on that morning, we were so happy. We were going home thinking Michael was going to get another MRI, because that was what, if there was any changes, he was supposed to get another MRI of his brain. So we were so happy. And by mid-morning, Natalie texted me, and she had moved him to another room. She had moved him out of the ICU into just a regular, ordinary room. And we couldn't understand that. The next day, this was Sunday the 10th of February of 2019. And we were on our way down there, and Natalie told us not to come. She said she was going to take him to hospice house. And we couldn't understand that, because he should have had another MRI because he had a change in his status. So what had happened now was that we waited all day, and Natalie kept saying, the ambulance is coming, the ambulance is coming. And what happened then was Natalie, about 8 o'clock that evening, we waited all day for Natalie to get Michael to hospice house. And 8 o'clock that evening, the preacher, Sam Green from Bible Baptist Church, called us and said that Michael had arrived at the hospice house to come now. It won't be long. So we rushed to the hospice house to see Michael Brandon. Michael Brandon's his breathing status had changed. They had given him something at CAMC before he traveled there.
Hang on a second. May I approach the witness?
Certainly.
My what? It's 8 pages. Can I read some of it? Well, I told a lot of it.
Let me ask you what that is, Ms. Bolt. Is that your victim's impact
It
statement?
sure is, sir.
Okay. Is there some way you can summarize that? I heard you say it was 8 pages.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I had a lot to say.
That's all right. I don't mean to cut you off at all, but in the interest of time and efficiency, is there some way you could perhaps focus upon the aspect of the defendant's character?
Yes, sir. When she put Michael Brandon in hospice house and we went in to see him, he had already turned ashen gray. The nurse was coming in every 15 minutes, giving him medicine, one medicine after the other. We were crying. Natalie was over there. It'll be okay. He died at 12:18 a.m. on Monday morning, February the 11th. 2 days later, Natalie had a funeral for Michael Brandon. We would ask if we could have this person or that person to come. She would tell us no. So on the day of the funeral, the only ones that were allowed to come was myself, and my husband Eddie and Michael's dad from Michael Brandon. That's all she would allow to come.
Ms. Bolt, I know that you have a statement that you've written, and as the judge said, we know that it's rather long.
Yes.
Could you just summarize that for us, especially with regard to the defendant's character and why you think she doesn't deserve mercy?
Yeah. After Michael died, we tried, we had suspicions and we tried not to, do anything because we wanted a relationship with our grandkids. In June of 2019, Nicole, she wouldn't respond to me anymore. And MAC, in August of 2019, he sent me a text and he said, "Don't bother me anymore. I'm going to block you. You don't love us anymore. We know that now." So we haven't had any relationship with Michael's kids since June and August of 2019. After Michael died, after Michael was murdered, Natalie Cochran, like I said, sent me contracts while I was standing at Michael's bedside in February. In February the 22nd and the 24th and 28th, she sent me text messages. She said they are state contracts. She said they have affidavits. This was a total of 3 contracts for an amount of $28,000. She said because they have affidavits, she said they will pay you, I guarantee.
Your Honor, I hate to object, and I know that I have a continuing objection, but this is not a summary of what the court asked the witness to do. This is the continuing history of day by day of what has happened. I object to it strenuously.
All right. Perhaps, Ms. Bolt, you can kind of relate things and focus upon character issues. And you can take a minute to review your statement. I see that it's typewritten and it's
Yes, sir.
pretty lengthy. So perhaps you can just pick out some portions that relate directly to the defendant's character.
Okay. Can I go now?
Yes, ma'am.
Since Michael's murder, Natalie Cochran's evil and sinister deeds have caused overwhelming damage and wrought on our lives and so many good and decent lives, lives that will forever cast a shadow of sadness. Michael Brandon was my only son, and I loved him and so adored him. I struggle every day. I struggle every day to make sense of what has no answers. The murder of my son is crushing, and yet I must try and move forward to honor his memory. Today, as we approach 6 years since Michael's murder, February 11th, 2019, we as a family have had to endure the glacial process of prosecuting Natalie Page Cochran for murdering our Michael Brandon while we also mourn his death. To this day, this vile being has showed no remorse, none whatsoever. Natalie Cochran and her family have never said they were sorry. We have no choice but to watch in the courtroom with repulsion as she smiles and banters with her family and friends, just like she doesn't have a care in the world. I was shocked to hear the testimony that Natalie's parents only lost $76,000, and her sister Penny only lost about $50,000. She stole $250,000 from us, and she stole hundreds of thousands of dollars from her other victims as well. We, along with our family and friends, have sat quietly and graciously and painfully watched and listened as Michael's good name has been murdered time and time again by those who publicly defend this murderer. Think of the horrific invasion of Michael's in our dignity and privacy. At what point and at what time do we seek sleeping at night? Is Michael Brandon resting in peace? I don't think so. We, as Michael Brandon's mom and stepdad, we respectfully ask this court, in the memory of our beloved and precious son, Michael Brandon Cochran, to delay for as long as judicially allowed the day that this cold-blooded murderer once again walks among us. In a pure world, light should never shine on that day. Evil, for reasons only evil knows, took it upon herself to steal from us and the world. We take comfort as best we can in believing our Michael, our beautiful, intelligent, kind-hearted Michael, is waiting for us in God's heavenly mansion in the air. We ask this court that Natalie Cochran be sentenced to life in the state prison for the rest of her natural life, with no pardon, no mercy, and no deals. This evil, narcissistic sociopath intentionally and knowingly pre-planned and committed first-degree premeditated murder, stealing the life of our son, Michael Brandon Cochran, at the young age of 38. To the court, Natalie Cochran will speak at her sentencing today because she has to have the last word. The simple truth is that while growing up, and even as an adult, this spoiled, evil, narcissistic murderer had seldom, if ever, been denied this which she wanted. The word no was not spoken or heard of in her world. She will try to blame my precious son Michael for her evilness and deceit. Natalie may even shed a tear or two, but we have now come to know that every word coming out of Natalie Cochran's mouth will just be another lie, and her tears will be fake tears trying to get sympathy from your court. Natalie is going to use Michael's children to get sympathy here today. She tried to do that with their testimonies during the trial. Judge, please don't fall for her con. That's what Natalie does. She only cares about herself. She will use, abuse, and manipulate anyone to get in her way. But we know the real Natalie Cochran, the thief, the liar, the taker of life, and the doer of evil deeds. I was told that Natalie Cochran was telling the community that we didn't raise Michael Brandon, that he was raised by his grandparents. That's just another lie. Michael Brandon even told Natalie in his presence and in my presence at a funeral, "Don't you ever put me in hospice." Michael had seen his grandfather, as his adopted grandfather whom he loved, H.B. Lewis, suffer that way. But what did she do? She went against his wishes and put him in hospice. This has been a very long and traumatic process for us, with all of the court delays and continuances. We have never given up, and we have been Michael Brandon's advocate and his voice. We have been waiting almost 6 years for justice for Michael. Throughout these 6 years, we have had to just sit back and be silent while Natalie gives newspaper and media interviews about my precious son Michael and her statements about what happened on February 6, 2019, and the incidences leading up to his death. The media will not try this case. All of the evidence and the proven facts and her conviction are enough to sentence Natalie Cochran to life in prison with no mercy. We've kept quiet as Natalie continues to blame Michael for her evilness that did not stop even after his death. While my son lay in the hospital on the ventilator, Natalie Cochran texted me government contracts on my phone. Believing and trusting her because she was our beloved daughter-in-law and because we loved her, Natalie manipulated us once again. Michael is not here to defend himself, but we are here. We are standing up for him and speaking for Michael and ourselves and asking the court for justice. We ask that you please, please, no mercy. She never gave Michael any mercy.
Thank you very much. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
All right, cross-examination.
I just have one or two questions. Ms. Bolt, you testified that you were not allowed in the ICU.
She told me that I could not come.
Okay. Did you know that there was only one person allowed in the ICU?
I could have come and stayed in the waiting
Ma'am,
room.
I didn't ask you that. I just asked you whether you knew that there was only one person allowed in the ICU.
I don't believe that, sir.
No, that's not my question, what you believe, ma'am. My question is whether you knew that there was only one person allowed in the ICU.
It always comes from Natalie. No, you can't come.
Ma'am, did you know that there was only one person allowed at the ICU?
That's not true, Mr.
Your Honor,
That's not true, sir.
I asked a simple
Wait
question.
till he asks the question. Pose the question again, please, Mr. Victor.
Did you know that there was only one person allowed in the ICU? Yes or no, ma'am?
No,
Okay. Now, did you know that your son had a living will to go to the hospice and be taken off life support? Did you know that or not?
I know he said he never wanted to go to
Ma'am,
hospice.
did you know that? Or
Did he
no?
tell you that, Natalie?
Your Honor, I'm sorry. The witness is addressing my client. I object to this, and I would like an answer.
All right, pose the question again, and then try to answer the question, please, Ms.
Yes, sir.
Bolt.
Ma'am,
Ask-
did you know that Michael had a living will to go to hospice and be taken off life support if need be?
No,
No, okay. Now, you testified that you haven't seen your grandchildren, right? For, what, 5 years?
they wouldn't have anything to do with us.
I didn't ask you that, ma'am. I just asked you whether you testified that you haven't seen your children since 2019.
The grandchildren,
Grandchildren, I'm sorry. Grandchildren since 2019, right?
June and August of 2019.
Okay,
They stopped responding.
okay. What kind of contact did you try to have with them?
Tried to text them and they blocked us.
Okay, how frequently did you text them, ma'am?
When you get blocked, sir, you don't go around them. They don't want to have anything to do with you.
Prior to being blocked, ma'am.
Prior to being blocked, we had a lot of relationships with them.
Okay,
After Michael died, we were trying to keep a good relationship with them.
and so you're telling us that all of a sudden, these two children, who in 2019 were relatively young, all of a sudden stopped communicating with you by blocking you?
Yes,
All right. And you attribute it to Natalie Cochran,
yes,
who prohibited them from having any contact with you?
yes, what they've been told.
Okay, what they've been told. You have absolutely no clue what she told them, do you?
You don't either.
Ma'am, Your Honor,
Just please, Ms. Bolt, just
Yes, sir,
answer
I'm
the
sorry.
question.
Yes, sir.
you have no clue what she told them, do you? Do you?
I can pretty much
Ma'am.
guess.
You don't know,
I'm not going to answer that yes or no, sir.
Your Honor.
Please answer it yes or no. It's a relatively simple question,
Okay.
Ms. Bolt.
So you asked me. Ask it again, sir.
Whether you, Your Honor, I'll withdraw this question.
All right.
That's all I want.
Anything further, Ms. Akron?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ms. Bolt.
Thank you,
may
sir.
sit down. Call your next witness, please, Mr. Truman.
The last witness the state will call is Robert Heinzman.